Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am your guide, Courtney Anderson. This is episode number 155, episode 155. Unbelievably that we've made it this far in this show. Wow. Specifically, episode 155 is one of our Management Magicians series. And this, of course, entire series is dedicated to honoring, reflecting upon those people who step forward, volunteer to serve as leaders and managers. And so when they do their work at the highest levels, it looks like magic. It looks like a trick or some sort of unbelievable thing because there's such levels of cohesion and collaboration, communication, efficiency, organization, empowerment, retention. There's so little dissension, conflict, time wasting arguments, and power struggles, and all of the things that will destroy groups. So, our management magicians really honestly deserve to be just acknowledged. It's not at all easy, and it's very rare. But when in management, which is an art, I would argue, and a science, when it's done at the highest level, the most effective, the most empowering, the most enjoyable, it really does seem like it's magic. And so, this specific show, episode 155, is entitled How to Effectively Avoid the Mean Manager Syndrome. How to effectively avoid the mean manager syndrome. Now, there's a couple of things I want to share with you. This show was put on the show schedule because it was based on an old program that I did when I was probably about a little bit more than a decade ago. I was traveling all over the world, about 250 to 300 days a year, doing what? Going to organizations and conducting training, management training, so different types of legal training, everything from hiring and firing, and then especially internationally, of course, I'm talking about the aspects of leadership that are separate from the law, empowerment, engagement, communication, understanding the psychology of your team members and yourself. So I'm traveling, and I'm thinking I'm really excited and happy because as I've shared in other programs, when I started in the corporate education, corporate training, I had been practicing law full time before that. And so I was not traveling at all. I was just every single day, 10, 12 hours a day. I was in my law office and I was dealing with issues there. I was at the courthouse. I was dealing with my clients. And so to be able to get out and see the world was so exciting. And so many of the places I went, I had never been before. But one of the things I thought initially was I'll get to meet all these really fortunate managers and supervisors. They're working at these organizations. The organization has brought in additional education and training. I thought this is going to be just nothing but fun and good times. I mean, they'll be happy and I'll be happy and it'll be just bliss. And many days it was, which is why I'm so fortunate and I am here to share knowledge that I learned on I met and worked with so many management magicians who it literally was effortless to go visit their offices. There wasn't friction, there wasn't dissension, there wasn't, people with the politics and backstabbing and sabotage. Nope. It was overall people who worked in a location wanted to work there. And they wanted to work there. They knew what to do and they felt empowered to improve and make it better. And they seemed overall cordial. Not that everybody was best friends, not that everybody their personality was similar, but they had this shared common task of the organization. And I saw it at government agencies and I saw it at private sector organizations. So it is out there. And I have literally been on the ground in so many of these wonderful organizations. Yet, I did also get the opportunity to experience a few organizations or meetings or educational events where our managers were not management magicians. And because of that, instead of them waking up and getting excited about going into work and looking forward to what they're going to do and feeling comfortable and empowered and that they were both serving the organization and their individual team members and themselves, right? We talk about in every program almost, one of the foundation principles that this entire organization and everything I do as a lawyer, certainly as a consultant, as an expert, as a speaker, as a professor. This idea that we need to make sure that we're checking to see how we feel about what we're doing professionally. And that's the idea of practicing the joyful art of business. And we don't, management magicians do practice the joyful art of business. Their good days outweigh their bad days. Overall, they feel good about what they do. Again, not every second of every moment of every day is just ecstasy, but overall, yeah, they do enjoy it. They do care. The mean manager syndrome is real. It is. Not just my own anecdotal experience. There's lots of data and research on this. I strongly encourage you to seek out. And I always include links and additional information in our programs. So, of course, I want to encourage you to come to CourtneyAnderson.com. This is episode 155, and you will find our webpage that's devoted just to this page, an entire show page that has links and supporting information and extended notes, and of course also shows you who our sponsors are, our sponsors and our partners that allow us to grow this program and grow this entire business. So, mean managers exist. Many people have remarked to me who are not managers or supervisors. They've said, "Oh, I've been told that my company or this organization would potentially like me to be a manager, but I really don't want everybody to hate me, so I don't want to be a manager." Now, it makes complete logical sense that the majority of people don't want to be managers or leaders, because it's an immense amount of responsibility and in some instances some additional pressure, right? Because you're not responsible just for yourself and your own deliverables, but you're also responsible for other people. Your managers, of course, are the entity responsible for getting stuff done. So it's materials and it's people and it's time and all of this. It's a lot. Now, most of us who love being managers and who love leadership thrive on all of that. It's exciting. But that we don't all lead and manage 100% of the time. We've done other programs. So I've talked about it. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. Sometimes you just relax. You're not in charge. Some people love to be in charge maybe of their family or their friends or their social groups. Some people love to be in charge of their professional activities but don't want to be in charge at home, and vice versa. And some people don't want to be really that much in charge anywhere. And all of that is fine. It would be unhealthy if someone insisted on being in charge everywhere all the time, because no one is going to be the expert of everything. We're always going to need to be in a situation where we don't know what's the most appropriate decision, because we're new. And what I mean is, just because let's say someone's been in banking and they've been in the banking industry for 35 years, incredibly successful in terms of their prestige and their position and their income, they need to go outside of that area where they feel so in control and do things where they don't know anything. Maybe they need to take a program about gardening where they know nothing, and they're going to be the one as the novice, and they're going to be the one that has to listen and follow someone else's instruction, because it's imperative that we have, again, that holistic balance in our lives, and that we continue to explore all sides of ourselves. And everyone is going to have areas where we really know a lot of information, and when we are thrilled to take maybe more of a prominent management position, and we're going to have other things in life where we don't know anything. And the majority of things in life, in fact, we don't know anything about. So it's important that we expose ourselves to that, so we don't start to have a skewed version where we think, "Oh, I know everything," because that's an it's an inaccurate statement. You might know everything about finance in the in the pharmaceutical sector. You don't know everything about everything in the whole world, because there's just too much information. So it's imperative we remind ourselves. When I run into the mean manager syndrome, again, it makes sense that someone might not want to be a manager. It doesn't make sense that someone doesn't want to be a manager because they're scared that people won't like them, because mean managers exist. Let's walk through. First, what's the mean manager syndrome? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. The idea is, if you're a manager, now you're a mean. You're a manager, you're a mean person. And you're so mean that everyone is either frightened of you or angry and resents you, and is trying to sabotage you and can't stand to be around you because you're big or little or young or old or whatever. But you're a meanie. I was going to say, you're a big meanie or a little meanie. You're mean. Are there, as I've already noted, instances where people who are managers also happen to coincidentally be mean? Yes. Are those two related in a sense that they're correlated, that they occur together? If I'm manager, automatically means I'm mean? No. Let's try this. Have you ever known someone who had children? Some of us may know people who had children and we're one of the children or grandchildren. Some of you may know, maybe yourself, the person who had children. Okay. Are there mean parents? Are there mean moms? Are there mean dads? Yes. We certainly have seen them portrayed in media and literature, in art, in popular culture. I see sometimes examples that I would label a mean parent just out at the store, right? Someone maybe yelling or berating or insulting or being cruel to their child. So just because some parents are mean doesn't mean that the mean behavior has anything to do with them being parents. All parents aren't mean. And of course, parents are leaders, who are managers in their family, in their household. So just because some managers are mean doesn't mean being a manager makes you mean, or being a manager has any relationship to being mean. Just because some parents are mean doesn't mean being a parent makes you mean or anything at all. It just means that they're mean people, yes, and they're people who are managers, yes, and sometimes those two happen at the same time. It's just like asking, are there some managers who are 4'11"? Yes, there are. But being 4'11" and being a manager, they don't correlate with each other in any way other than it might happen that there's a person who is both of those things, but they're not related to each other. Being a manager doesn't make you 4'11". Being 4'11" doesn't make you a manager. They're discrete, separate. So as I said, it's totally understandable, and the majority of most people surveyed around the world who are not managers say, I don't want to be a manager. I just want to do my work and be happy in my work, and I don't want to manage. And that makes, again, sense due to the fact that it's going to require a lot of responsibility, and it's just a lot of a more involved process stepping up to lead something, to manage or supervise something, versus being a very important team member. Those are different tasks. So when we look at this idea of mean manager syndrome, it's imperative that we continue to understand the pressures and the differences between being a manager and not being a manager, which we've just been discussing, right? There's more pressure. You're responsible for yourself, you're responsible for other people. You have to handle all of your own emotions, and then also have the reserves to be able to handle other people's emotions or fears or concerns or anger or miscommunications. There's a lot more in terms of just volume of responsibility. It's sort of like this. I was doing my fitness earlier today. My exercise at my local gym. So I'm at my gym using the exercise equipment, having a wonderful exercise. Actually, I really felt I had a great workout today, and I really enjoy going to the gym. I do. I just do. I really enjoy it. Now, me enjoying going to the gym, does that mean I would want to own a gym? No. I really enjoy going out to a nice restaurant for delicious meals. Does that mean I want to own a restaurant? No. Owning or leading or managing something is totally different from just being there and being part of it and enjoying it, as whether as a customer or a team member. These are totally different goals. And what leads to someone often behaving in a way where we would label them mean is they're overwhelmed. So the mean manager syndrome is where you have someone who's a manager and they also at the same time contemporaneously are mean. We just explained that those things happen coincidentally at the same time, but it doesn't have any correlation, right? The issue, though, of what manager means in terms of how different it is to be a manager than it is to not be a manager is part of what leads to mean manager syndrome. People who aren't really interested in the extra layers of opportunity for personal growth, of opportunity and responsibility. In that setting, they might say, you know what, I love part of this or being part of this team. Maybe I like working here, but I don't want to manage this whole place and make all these decisions. I've had the pleasure and privilege over many years of teaching at several uh, institutions of higher education, being a professor, and I love it. I love teaching. Just because I love teaching doesn't mean and working as a professor in an institution, um, doesn't mean I want to manage an institution. I don't want to manage a university. That's a totally different job. And it would take me away from what I love. I love teaching. I don't know that I'd love administering and managing, and I've taught at large organizations, large institutions. I've taught at some smaller colleges. Um, but whether it's smaller, whether it had 2,000 student enrollment, or it had, 50,000 student enrollment, or it had 90,000 student enrollment, it's still a totally different job. Managing an institution of higher education is not anywhere near the same job as what I enjoy, which is the teaching part. I love teaching. And more specifically, of course, I teach business and related issues. I teach a lot of different types of business, but that's what I love, teaching. I don't want to manage it. I don't want to be the administrator. Now, maybe in the future, my career will continue to change and professional opportunities will present themselves, and I will continue to learn more. So I don't know what my future holds, but I know that in the past and as of this moment right now, it's not anything that I would say I'm prepared for. Maybe I would just need to take extra education or training and learn new things, and maybe I could be prepared in the future. I don't want to rule that out, but I enjoy teaching. That's to say this. If I woke up tomorrow and someone forced me, now this of course would be illegal. If someone forced me and said, you're going to have to manage this institution, I do believe, I want to believe, right, that I would be competent. I certainly know a lot and have managed smaller organizations, my own companies, and certainly understand all the different theoretical and applied knowledge I need to manage large organizations. I think I actually would probably do a pretty good job at it in terms of outcomes for everybody else. Stuff would get done, people would be respected, organization and communication would be clear. I do think all of that would happen. I think the challenge would be that right now, at this time exact, like right now, I would be overwhelmed. And even though I believe I could go ahead and actually complete the task, and I actually think I'd be either competent or pretty good in terms of outcome because I have the skills, I don't think I'd be happy. Because if I couldn't teach at all, which is what really makes me so happy, and I might probably then not be able to have the opportunity to be sharing knowledge on these shows and doing consulting and the other things I'm able to do. Even though I could do the job and probably do it well, I don't believe that would make me happy. And because I haven't gotten to a point in my career and in my life where I feel like that would be the right professional opportunity for me, I don't pursue it. If I did pursue it, it's more likely that I could potentially be a mean manager. And not because I'm a mean, horrible person all the time, but it would be because I would put myself in a situation where I had an incredible amount of pressure added to my plate, and I took away things that made me happy, that gave me pleasure. Now, I could function, and like I said, I could probably, most likely, I'm hoping, assuming, get a lot done and do a good job at it in terms of outcomes. I just don't know how happy it would make me. So the way to avoid the mean manager syndrome, first of all, is don't go into jobs to be managers that you don't want to do. There's nothing that you could share that as a rationalization that will persuade me that you should go ahead and do a job you don't want to do as a manager, because it just requires such an investment. It requires such an investment of your time. It requires such an investment of your emotions. It requires such an investment of all of your resources. And that, of course, because there's only a finite amount of hours each day, you're taking time away from other things. So maybe you'll have to cut back on hobbies. Maybe, again, if there's part of a job you love, you won't be able to do it. If I couldn't teach, I wouldn't be happy. I love teaching. So how do I avoid the me manager syndrome? The easiest part of this is just don't start one. You don't start a me manager syndrome by not going into positions as a manager that you know ahead of time is too much. Whether too much time or too much responsibility or too many layers, or it's going to take away too much from the other things in your life you enjoy. I don't care what, but it's too much. Then don't do it. Yes, just because everyone says to you, or people even, sometimes people even, really ask people aggressively, hey, we need you to be manager. You're the best person in this department. Okay. That may all be true and a huge compliment, but just because other people think highly of your work doesn't mean that you're going to be in a good position emotionally, psychologically, in terms of your entire totality of your life by going into something you don't want. Back to my analogy outside of the home, management in the home. Being a parent for most people is one of the most wonderful, glorious, exhilarating, life-changing events of their lives. And we all had somebody somewhere that gave birth to us. Some of us didn't stay with the person who gave birth to us. Maybe we were adopted. Who knows what things happen in our life. But for most people, being a manager in a home is exciting and exhilarating and awesome. Yes. Is it a lot of responsibility? Of course it is. Unlike being a manager at work where you work with adults. When you're a manager in your home with children, especially if you have a newborn and you adopt a young child, you have someone who's still developing. In humans, we have a long developmental period, relatively speaking, as some other species. If you, depending on where you are, you're going to have to help someone the basics, what we consider as adults, right? To the point where they're able to be mobile and maybe feed themselves and use the restroom by themselves and groom themselves. There's a lot. Is everyone able right this second, right now where we're talking, right now we're in the middle of this program, is this the right time for everyone right now who is not a manager in a home and does not have young children or infants? Is this the right time for them to right now go out and yes, I'm ready to manage a family? The answer, of course, is no. Some people might be really too young. Some people might be in a situation where they're pursuing another vocation or education or something in their lives. It might be that some people don't have the financial resources. It might be that somebody's health isn't in a situation where that's a good time for them to think, I'm going to be able to do all of the things I need to do to take care of myself, and add on someone else who, the younger they are, will have different challenges. And even as they progress, an adolescent young person has a lot of needs. So it's awesome to be a manager. It is, and be someone supervising in a work environment, professional environment. It's awesome to be a manager or supervisor in a home environment. It's just that not everybody needs to do those management roles, obviously, because there's going to be some people who aren't managers, the majority of people. And even if people might be in a position where later in their life they would be a wonderful manager. As I said, I would, later in my life, if I hope I ever could become successful and learning the skills I would need to, I would be very open to learning and potentially pursuing administrative leadership roles at a university. I'm not able to do that today. I don't feel that I have the skills to do that right now, and I still love teaching, and I'm making other choices, but I wouldn't foreclose that opportunity forever. And it's the same thing with people starting families. My point is simply this: you avoid by being the mean manager, by not getting yourself in situations where you're overwhelmed and you're going to then react in ways that are really counterproductive, by being short-tempered, by being critical, by being insecure, by being rude, by being unable to sleep as much as you need to, by running out of opportunities to nurture and care for yourself. Then it's going to put you in a position where you're going to be more likely to behave in ways that people are going to interpret as mean. Now, that's a very different situation from somebody who, we get that stereotype all the time. You ask people about their greatest, mentors in life, right? Your manager, your teacher, your coach. And you'll get usually this sort of very consistent feedback of, well, it's the person who was tough but fair. The person who I knew, I had no doubt cared about me and wanted the best for me, but they were tough. They didn't just say yes to everything, and they tried to help me learn things to be a better uh, person, to be a better professional, to be a better adult. That tough but fair. That's not a mean manager. That's not a mean parent. That's just the person who is very focused on ensuring that they are content and able to meet their needs, and that through this process of guiding and mentoring, supervising other people, that the best is intended for everyone. And being tough, meaning saying to a young person, hey, this is the rule in the home. You need to be, have a curfew or be in by a certain time. Or saying to someone in a work environment, hey, the rules here are that we're going to communicate professionally and we're not going to curse and threaten other people. Yeah, you could let people do whatever they want to. And in many instances, you're going to have very poor outcomes. Now, certainly in a family where we're dealing with young children, growing children, adolescents going through development, of course, that's fraught with people learning. But in a job, people learn too. They really do. And as someone who steps up, the easiest way, again, to avoid me manager syndrome is don't sign up to be manager when you're not totally convinced this is right for you. Now, if you are totally convinced it's right for you, don't get confused. This is my second point here, between being, quote, me manager and being tough but fair. Being tough but fair is exactly what you have to be. Because if you're not fair, then you are a failure as a manager. If you are not fair, you are a failure as a manager. Honestly. Inconsistency, lack of fairness means you treat one person one way, another person another way. So you play favorites. You only enforce the rules with some people. You see this in families all the time. A parent will have a favorite. So there's 4 kids and one kid is the favorite. And that child can do whatever they want to. They can stay out. They can say what they want. They don't have to do their chores, whatever. It's their world. And then the other children are told you have to do this and that and do your chores. And then they resent. Well, why are we doing this? The other person got to do whatever they wanted to. Well, of course they did. That's my favorite. The destruction that does to people. I mean, we know. We don't have to necessarily be scientists, social scientists, or psychologists to have some understanding. It's in so many different depictions in art and media and culture and music. The pain that does to somebody, right? I wasn't the favorite. It's so destructive. The fairness thing is the key. Now, is it true that people may have different very personal perceptions of different team members if they're a manager at work, employees, and maybe different family members? Yes. But should the people who work with you ever know that? Absolutely not. And you'll be surprised because people change. People grow. People make different decisions. And tough but fair means that you hold people accountable. And the most important person to hold accountable. So the first thing we talked about is you're not going to be a mean manager because you're only going to manage and step up to volunteer to manage when you really, really want to. That fixes the whole problem of the reason you're overwhelmed and behaving inappropriately is because it's just the wrong job for you. The second thing is you really do want to do it. You want to manage. You're excited. Yet, management is challenging. We've been, it's very difficult to do well. And it's very difficult to do in a way where you're still practicing the joyful art of business, where you still feel good about yourself, you're contented, you have your time to indulge in your hobbies and interests and just fun relaxation time. Being, quote, tough but fair is the easiest way to be effective and not be mean. Because if people believe and trust in you, you are either already a management magician or you're on your way. And it's so simple. They'll believe and trust in you in your actions, not your words, because so many of our words, unfortunately, we don't mean we don't say what we mean. But it's your actions. Your actions show people you are exactly what you say you are. And that you hold yourself and other people accountable. So if timeliness is in some sort of specific schedule at work is imperative, then you adhere to it. I talked to a manager, and this was over a decade ago now. It was a while ago. And it was somewhere on the East Coast in the United States. I don't remember what city. And it was a big conference, and I was doing a big speech. And so afterwards, there was some time to sort of relax. People had, I think it was like a break for people to have a tea and coffee. And so somebody came up to me, he was a senior executive at this organization, and he said something to me like, yeah, I make my team members all get to the office at, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. But I have a real problem, with time. So, I mean, I'm, late, maybe an hour or two, probably almost every day. And he said something like, do you think they notice that? Do you think that's creating a problem? Yeah. Now, if the person had a job where they weren't at the office because they were, visiting a client, that would be a different situation. That wasn't the situation. The person was just asleep. They overslept. And so they were trying to hold everybody else to this rule that they wouldn't even adhere to. And I don't care what the rule is at a business or in a family. Everybody notices the rules. So if we're all supposed to take turns picking up around the house or doing chores, you need to pitch in, or you need to do your part as the family structure has been decided. But if you tell somebody else to do something you're not even willing to do yourself, then you have no credibility. They don't believe in you. Now, anything you tell somebody, they are going to say you're mean because it's arbitrary. You don't even follow the rule. So you have two choices. Change the rule. If having everybody there at 8 is not working, then tell everybody to come at 9, and then you'll be there on time. Problem solved. If you're not able to change the rule, then you need to sit down and figure out, is this the right thing for you to do to try to manage people that you're not even able to show up to do? Can you transfer to a different job position? But it's not, you can't keep doing this and not continue to have horrible outcomes. If everybody feels like we're here together pitching in, not doing the exact same duties, of course the manager or the leader is going to have some different duties, but they see you there, pitching in, caring, sharing. You're not a mean manager. We're all in the same boat. We're all doing our part. Shared goals and vision. You're not a mean manager if you show them you care. How do you show them you care? You just do things to demonstrate your caring. I'm showing up. I'm paying attention. I'm pitching in to do my part because we all have organizational goals. See, I care. Now, everyone has different personality. Some people, I would say, hey, smile as much as you can. Right? Show your energy and your enthusiasm. But some people have a personality, that's not their personality. And if they try to do that, it looks weird. They look like, I know some people, when they, just because our personalities and our facial expression and sort of our sense of humor, they're all different. So you have to be you. And I know one of the things, for example, I get this all the time. I get this question all the time. I mean, I probably got the question yesterday. When I'm intensely thinking, which is what I spend a lot of my time doing, right? So I'm reading, I'm writing, I'm sitting and sort of brainstorming. When I'm thinking, apparently, I don't know because I've never looked in a mirror while I'm doing it, but apparently I look mean. And people will say to me, not just only do I look mean, if I have a call that I have to take, which I schedule my time, we talk about this in other programs where I really tightly schedule my time so I don't. And this is an ability I have because of the work I do. So for my students, I have office hours that I set up, or that I am able to meet with students. So I'm not in a job where like I'm answering a reception area phone. That's my job. Then I couldn't control when I would be interrupted because that would be my job. But I have the time now where I block out my time. So there's a certain amount of time I'm writing, there's a certain amount of time I'm working on different projects, I'm thinking, I'm brainstorming, I'm reading, whatever. So I don't often have where I have to take a call will come in when oh my goodness, I'm in the middle of deep, analysis. But it does happen occasionally. And so not only do I apparently look like I'm mean or mad or angry or something when I'm doing this thinking, but I also sound like it. And people will ask me if I have to take a call and I take a call, they'll say, well, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'll say, nothing's wrong. I was reading, or I was, grading something, or I was working on an outline. Nothing was wrong. I'm just thinking. But it's a very different energy and a very different physicality than it is when I'm like right now when we're having the program or when we're working on something else, right? So if I was doing some work that I loved, I'd need to be aware of how other people interpret everything, my tone of voice, my facial expression. You need to be aware of it. If your behavior consistently shows people you care, if you can, and it depends on your work, it depends on the environment, it depends on a whole bunch of things. But when you're able to, I would argue that you want to demonstrate to people and let them know that you are in yourself enjoying what you're doing and that you're enjoying working with them. And it could be something as simple as, I'm glad you're part of the team. You're doing a good job. See how easy this is? Tough but fair. You want to do three things, which I've talked about in a lot of other programs, but they're the key of success for managers. Consistency. I mean, everybody follow the rules. You follow the rule. You're consistent. And then when we change the rule, fine, but everyone changed it. Now we're consistent. Confidentiality. You need to keep confidential things confidential. Also, your own personal confidential information, keep it to yourself. Don't go burden your children or people that work with you with all your personal, problems and apprehensions. Why are you doing this? You're supposed to be the one in charge and managing things, and don't do that. You need to have other peers, resources, counselors, clergy, whoever that you talk to about those things, people who see all that vulnerability and are there to help you and aren't dependent on you, and you won't frighten. So consistency, confidentiality, and compliance. Compliance with whatever your policies are, or the law is, whatever. Consistency, confidentiality, compliance. That's going to result in usually some kind of discussion that you're tough but fair. And you're not a mean manager. People don't think you're mean. They just think you're trying to get things done, and you're serious and you're committed, and this is how you are. But they also know the core thing that they believe, if they think you're tough but fair, is that they believe you care. You care about the work, and at some level, you care about them. And if that's the setup, then you're going to get management magician. People go about their work, they feel good about themselves, they know when there's a problem or a challenge, they can come to you, and you are absolutely invested in active listening, and you are tough but fair, and you are not a mean manager. You're an effective manager. You're a manager that often they look up to. You're a manager that they respect. You're a manager that they trust. You're a role model. You're not mean, but you certainly are in command of that team, or if it's in your home, of that family. And that's a functioning, healthy, safe place for everybody. And you feel pretty good about your life because you have very few problems, because everything's been set up with these processes, procedures. People trust, they understand they're going to be held accountable. Their biggest fear when they work with someone who they say is tough but fair is that they'll disappoint them. And that is the best compliment. They want that person to respect and be proud of them. And it's just beautiful. You should feel the same way about yourself as a management magician. You don't want to disappoint yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. When you make a mistake, that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Have a sense of humor and get out there and get that entire experience in your life where you're enjoying so much of what you're doing. So it's not just work, but you have different things that you do, different ways that you show the different sides of who you really are. Again, can someone be a manager and at the same time can they be mean? Yes. Do they have anything to do with each other in terms of correlations? No. How do you avoid it effectively? A, don't say yes to be manager when you know it's going to be overwhelming. It's too much. The other thing is, if you are in a situation where you really are eager and you know that being a manager is going to be fun and interesting and exciting and challenging, and you really look forward to it, then you have to make sure that you are being focused on that sort of archetype that you're tough but fair. Tough just simply means you following whatever the rules are. People know they can trust you. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. Fair part is really important. Consistency. No favorites. You're pitching in, and they know you care. And then their biggest fear is disappointing you. And everything in life is much more open in terms of communication and trust and safe environments, and people have an opportunity to thrive, and you have an opportunity to focus on the good part of managing that you're really excited about. So we know how to avoid the me manager syndrome. This was episode 155. Please come to CourtneyAnderson.com. Come to our show page, episode 155. Go to our show sponsor. We have some information from one of our show sponsors that has training on leadership and management. And we also have some links to some of the other leadership and management programs through Amazon. So we've got some HR Direct, and Jean Neal are our show sponsors that are focusing on different management material. And we also have some, again, materials through Amazon. Come to the show page and support our show sponsors through that show page by accessing and clicking on those links. Also, give us reviews, feedback, rate us on iTunes, share us on social media. Share us. If there's anything of value, let other people know so they can join into our program. I thank you so much for being part of the program today, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.